Types of research and research process. This video explains about different types of research and steps and phases in research process. There are some exam point of view tips at the end of the video. Please do watch it completely. Types based on the purpose of study. The research actually broadly classified into types based on the purpose of study and types based on methodology. So, based on the purpose of study, the research is classified as basic research, applied research, action research, and evaluative research. What is basic research? It is a pure or fundamental research. The scientific invention of a new knowledge comes under the basic research. So, it is directly applicable to the real world. So, for an example, a study to understand normal grieving process, which is an example of a basic research. Next is applied research. It is otherwise called as practical research. So it is usually performed in the natural settings. So the theories are tested for their effectiveness by the applied research. So the example for applied research is a study to determine the effectiveness of nursing intervention to reduce grieving. So if you are applying an intervention process in the grieving process, then you are checking whether the grieving process, how it changes. It is called applied research. The next one is action research. So it is cyclic in nature. The basic steps like planning, action, observation, and reflection will be checked in case of action research. So same like plan, do, check, act, PDCA. The research happens like you plan, do it, and see the action and effectiveness, and then repeat it again if needed. So which is called action research. The next one is evaluative research, which is a standard social research method to evaluate a program. So if I am doing an online class, at the end of the session I'll be checking and feedback from the students to check my type of teaching method, so which is called evaluative research. As per methodology, the research is classified as qualitative, quantitative, and mixed research. So the methodology actually we'll be discussing in detail regarding the qualitative and quantitative. So here I will just give what is quantitative and what is qualitative research. So qualitative research is a systematic, subjective, and methodological approach used to describe life experiences and situations from the researcher's view. So if you are going to explain a life experience or describe a life experience in a standardized systematic way, we say it as qualitative. So usually words comes under or description comes under qualitative research. What is quantitative research? It is a formal, objective, and systematic process of explaining phenomena by collecting numerical data that are analyzed statistically. So whatever formal research, you do it with the help of the numbers and you do a data analysis at the end. We say it as quantitative research. Mixed research is nowadays very popular, which is the combination of both qualitative and quantitative. So you can describe the problem as well as you can give evidence of numerical data and do a statistical analysis, which is mixed research. Research process. It is defined as a systematic process that deals with gathering and analysis of data in an objective manner. So if you do the step-by-step process to identify the solution to your problem or answers to your research question, we say it as research process. So the research process has 5 phases, that is conceptual phase, design and planning phase, empirical phase, analytical phase, and dissemination phase. So we'll be discussing what are all the phase and what all the points comes under each phase. First one is conceptual phase. So in this conceptual phase, the things what you have to do is first one, identification of a research problem. So you have to identify which area or which part you are going to do a research. Determine purpose of study. So once you select your problem, you should make sure why you study and what is the use of studying this or doing research in that specific topics, and set objectives. So you have to set primary and secondary objective, or so that you can focus on the path. Then once you are clear with your problem and you set objectives, you have to do literature review. So you have to go through some journals, books and internet references to make sure what all the studies have been conducted and how they have conducted the studies. So review of literature is a very important aspect which comes under conceptual phase. Develop theoretical and conceptual framework. So you have to develop, after reviewing the others literature, you have to develop your own conceptual framework so that you can picturize your research process, and it helps others to view it and see how the research process is planned. So you have to develop a conceptual framework, which is nothing but a picturized format of a research or a blueprint of an research. Identify limitations and assumptions. So you have to identify what is your limitation in the study. Maybe you are focusing only the male or only focusing the female of age between 35 to 45, or maybe those who are living in only on the district. So these kind of limitations will be there, like sample size, sample characteristics. You have to identify all the limitations and formulate the hypothesis for your research process. So these are all the steps comes under conceptual phase: identification of the problem, determining the purpose of study, setting objectives, doing a review of literature, developing conceptual framework, and identifying the limitations and formulate hypothesis. The next phase is design and planning phase. So what you do here, once you are ready with your problem and hypothesis, then you will move on to the next phase, which is called design and planning. So here what you should do, you should select the research design or research methodology, whether you are planning to do a qualitative research or a quantitative research. There are different types of quantitative and qualitative or mixed. So you have to identify what particular methodology you are going to adapt for your research. Identify the population. So where you are going to do the research, who are all the people who is going to participate in the research. So you will identify your target and accessible population and develop sampling plan and do a sampling process. We have already discussed in my video what is sampling process. So you should know how to select the sample. So you have to start selecting the samples in this phase. Specify the method and get an ethical clearance. So ethical consideration is a vital aspect of the research. So ethical consideration from the participant or from the institution where you are doing the research is an essential one. So you have to make sure that this is done at this phase. Conduct pilot study. So before applying it on the complete sample, what you have to do, you have to conduct pilot study for a short group of people. The next phase is empirical phase. We have seen conceptual phase, design and planning phase, and now it is empirical phase. So in empirical phase, what you have to do, you have to design the data tool and collect data from the samples and then organize the data. So you have to design the tool and check validity and reliability. And once validity and reliability checked, you can start collecting data and then organize the data. Next one is analytical phase. Here what you do, you data analyze your content, what you collected from your sample, and interpret the findings. So you have to do data analysis either statistically, descriptive or inferential way, and then interpret the findings at this phase. So usually the research completes in analytical phase. Yes, so the teachers may say that you are completed your research, but the research actually is not stopping at this phase, and you have to move on to dissemination phase, which is very, very essential. So once you do a research, you should communicate your research and you should apply it in your nursing practice or wherever you have done the research. So communication of the findings and utilizing the findings comes under dissemination phase. Communication phase is nothing but you have to publish the research what you have done in the journals or in the magazines, or at least you have to communicate it to the nursing groups where you are working and utilize the findings. If something is applicable, then of course you should use it in the practical applications. So these are all the 5 phases in research process. First one is conceptual phase, design and planning phase, empirical phase, analytical phase, and dissemination phase. Some books which explains the research process in steps, not by phases. In that case, you should know that what is step 1. The step 1 is define or research problem. You have to refine your research problem. Step 2 is review of literature. You should do the review. And then 3 is formulate hypothesis. 4, preparing the research design. 5, data collection. 6, data analysis, and 7th step is interpretation and report writing. So this way also research process is explained. So either way you can write it, but the best method I suggest is writing by phases, because which includes every step inside the phases. Okay, this is in short you can write about the research process. The commonly asked university question is, what define research process and explain its phases with an example. So they may ask explain the steps or explain the phases with an example. So when they ask like that, what you have to do, you have to write the phases, and in each phase, under each phase you can just write what you have done. For example, in conceptual phase you can write what is your research problem. In the planning phase you can write what is your research design, what is your target population, and how much was your sample size, what sampling process you have done. So you can write it as per the phases. So this is how you should write if they ask you to write with an example. So you can choose the example as what you have done in your project. The same thing you can apply it here and you can write it. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye, see you in next video.